I'll be honest with you now in the saying that when I'm not talking like this, I struggle on the outside. It's like when I'm out there spraying my paddock with the alcohol and the Valiums, that's when my land is hurting. But when I'm letting the bad days come and the weeds roll in, mate, that's when I'm like, this is life. That's natural. Like, this happens.
That was Tommy Herschel, and you're listening to The Regenerative Journey. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and internationally, and their continuing connection to country, culture, community, land, sea and sky. And we pay our respects to elders past, present and future.
G'day, I'm your host Charlie Arnott, and in this podcast series I'll be uncovering the world of regenerative agriculture, its people, practices and principles, and empowering you to apply their learnings and experience to your business and life. I'm an 8th generational Australian farmer who transitioned my family farm from industrial methods to holistic regenerative practices. Join me as I dive deep into the regenerative journeys of other farmers, chefs, health practitioners and anyone else who's up for a yarn, and find out why and how they transition to a more regenerative way of life.
Welcome to The Regenerative Journey with Charlie Arnott.
Well, here we are, we're back with part 2, Tommy Herschel. And also we're really excited to announce that we are setting up a Patreon account or platform. And that basically means that you as listeners of The Regenerative Journey can help support the creation, the continued rolling out of Series 3, basically for the cost of a couple of coffees a month. You will, in return, knowing that you'll be supporting Series 3, also getting access to exclusive content such as a monthly webinar with some of our interviewees or people you may nominate. That's in the very least. We're probably going to throw a few other little bonuses in there as well for you, but hopefully you'll see that you'll be attracted to the carrot we're dangling of a webinar with people like Charlie Massey, David Marsh, Damon Gamo, to listen and get exclusive access to them, Q&A once a month on a webinar just for our Patreon members. So very excited about that. In this second part of our interview, Tommy really goes pretty deep into his own, I guess, how he's dealing with his own past and own experiences, how that's enabled him to really understand and connect with boys and men in the workshops that he's running. Can't tell you again how much I appreciate that Tommy shared what he did with us. And he also shares with us his sort of form guide for a fella. I think it's fantastic, the sort of little tips and tricks that he's put together for anyone just to sort of stop, check and correct, I guess is the easiest way to put it, but some really good little tips along the way. Again, life-saving stuff from Tommy Herschel. Lovely interview, lovely fella. Hope you enjoy this second half of our interview with Tommy Herschel.
And then, mate, we go through, like we do this activity where they get to get up and tell their story. So that was a situation I was talking about then, like a men's workshop I was talking about. I had a workshop last week on the Gold Coast where it was unbelievable.
So men's as in
as in
teens?
older blokes?
Blokes.
So that was like blokes who were, we had 30-year-olds right through to 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds in the room. And that age group, that'll be through Narromine, Gilgandra, Warren, Trangie, Tamingley, all that area, they get, and what the work we're going to do in Queensland will be all those sort of age groups as well, so these men's nights. But then the workshop in the school runs exactly the same way in a sense. You build the boys up really a lot more at the start, and we just, it has this opportunity. There's this opportunity for a young fella to either get in and tell his story or listen to someone else's story, which is something we don't do. Like I said at the start, something I never bothered doing with my dad, even though I haven't ever sat down with him and given him the opportunity to tell me his story, is I've listened to a bit more of his story through grandma. So I gain that empathy. And one thing young blokes don't ever do because of that men's law is sit and listen, because we're not meant to do that.
No.
We're meant to push it aside. So this workshop up there, like, it was probably the most mind-blowing thing you've ever seen. This kid out the front of the workshop, there's 100 kids all standing around him making heaps of noise, and this kid's got big Coke bottle glasses on. He stands about 6'8". If we had 5 knots of breeze, he would have snapped in half. He stood out like you wouldn't believe. And he was begging the teacher to not let me. I don't want to go in, sir. These boys don't like me. I don't want to go in. And the teacher, mate, please come in. he comes in, we're doing all the macho bullshit, all the joking and the banter and the noise and the jokes, and I'm, dropping the F-bomb here and there, and the boys are, they're frothing and loving it, and he can see like this men's law being built, and, and it gets to the point of, well, what happens if you don't do this? And he's the one that suffers because he doesn't do it. So he's isolated. He's on his own. He's not allowed to talk about emotions. So he deals with it at home on his own. Anyway, got to this point where I challenged the boys. I go, fellas, I want to put it to anyone in the room, like anyone been to a B&S here or we remember in the old days, the dancing days, you'd see the blokes or go across the other side of the room and grab a girl and dance. We're going to do that here, right? Instead of dancing, you're going to talk. So we're going to have a moment right now. We might sit here for 5 minutes till a man steps up and does it, but this is your first challenge. And it was incredible. Like it was like the Hollywood movie, Zac Efron, the good-looking quarterback, steps up and grabs the girl out of the room. The good-looking halfback gets up in front of everyone after about a minute of dead silence, and he gets up and he says, I want to chat with that fella. And this fella's obviously got a name, but I won't say it. And he picks out the kid with the Coke bottles, and this kid just gobsmacked. What? Anyway, they went off, and the minute that first couple goes off, then the rest of the boys pair up and they go around the room and they go off like wildfire. They just talk for hours. They could talk for hours, sorry. I give them 2 minutes just to give them that taste. And then we get them back into the big circle, and I put it to them and go, boys, what was that like? How did it feel? I'd love to put that same challenge to someone to step up the front here. And this is where we bring in the tools and the skills. And they are, fellas, we need to get better at listening. Women are really good at listening. Women do a lot of talking and a lot of gossip, all that sort of stuff. We got to get better at listening like they do. And we got to get better at asking questions with a bit of weight to them. So, instead of saying, "No, Charlie, where's your farm?" and you say Buru, I say, "Charlie, what's it like to be on a regenerative farm? What does that mean for you as a man, and what was it like for your father?"
Ask better questions.
Ask better questions. So anyway, this young fella, mate, he got up in front of the whole group, and he looked across the room, he looked around the room, and he straight away just looked at the boys and he said, "Boys," in this beautiful, soft voice, he just said, "Life for me is very hard. It's really tough. I come to school every day. Only 4 days ago, I got called a faggot. Someone yelled out across the room and everyone laughed. That same day, I had a full apple thrown at my head. I get told that it's my fault that I'm here and I should take my own life." He said, I want to tell you a story. 2 years ago, my father did take his own life. Since then, I've attempted 2 or 3 times. It's broken my mother's heart. She's an amazing woman. He went into this talk around how incredible his mum is as a lady, as a woman, as a mother. And behind me, I had a lady in the room who was just wailing, like she was just letting out all this emotion. And then he just dropped his head and he slumped. And from the back of the room, you just hear this voice. It's like, "Mate, I'm so sorry. I never knew that was your story, and that doesn't excuse my behaviour. But I cannot believe how I've treated you." And this kid just started crying. From across the room, another one got up. "I'm sorry, mate. I can't believe I've spoke to you the way I have. I can't believe I was the one who threw the apple." Boom, boom, boom. 100 kids all of a sudden just got up and they lined up. They lined up in a line and they started hugging him. And this kid's sitting down and he's taking the hugs like this. And I said, "Mate, stand up. Put your shoulders back because you're the man in the room. Like you're the hero, mate. And you hug these blokes." And mate, they were just in his ear, "I'm sorry." And they were all giving him their apologies and talking, and went and sat back down and was just in awe of what this kid had done. And then out of nowhere, this big boy, this big fella just yells out and goes, "I want to take this opportunity as well." And he said, I'm overweight. I get teased for it. I get told it's my fault. My father, this, and this, my mother, this, and this. And then boom, circle again. "I'm so sorry. I've been the one who's teased you, mate, and I didn't know that this is what I was doing. And the reason I've done that is because I feel this way, and I've been treated like this before." And this huge conversation starts up. And all of a sudden, these boys, they had that moment where I had with Bing, where Bing says, "Hey, mate, I'm here for you, buddy. But you need to step up and tell your story. You need to step up and own this stuff." And those 2 boys that had those issues that day, they hadn't done anything to bring on that behaviour from those other fellas. Their biggest mistake in life was that they didn't live to the men's law. And that's what had suppressed them for so long. So the minute we smash that, those two men become the heroes. Not the good-looking surfer who gets all the girls, not the halfback who scores all the tries. They're the heroes that I looked up to when I was at Palm Beach Currumbin. So I chased as many girls as I could because I was never going to be a world champion surfer, and I was never going to play rugby league or NRL. So I just did everything I could to be this loud bloke. Where realistically, I wanted to be those two boys that stood up, and I wanted to stand up and I wanted to say, hey, I'm really hurting inside, boys. I go home from school and I cry a lot on my own. I go home from school and I ring my dad and I sit next to a fax machine and I write him letters. When I went and lived with my dad, I used to sit next to the fax machine and write mum letters. But I didn't have the balls to do that, and these two boys did do that. So the part of the workshop is I talked before about that Coke bottle theory. Those boys that day went to that Coke bottle and all their pressure had built up, and they just took the lid off just a little bit, just by talking, and the pressure comes out. You know, you could see them relax.
It's a purge, like both those who are, I guess, being, or I guess, attacked in a way, or they're the subject of the torment. You know, they're purging, and then there's a purge from the other side, isn't it?
Yeah, there is, mate. It's this
which is the bottle, which is the Coke bottle.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole outcome of the work is for me, and Find Your Feet, is to let the boys know that this is completely normal. That having these emotions is normal. For the halfback to get up and say, mate, I'm so sorry, and to cry in front of everyone else, like, mate, that's incredible. I love that. Like, we're allowed to do this. But the outcome for them is, and the tools is, that when that Coke bottle starts to build for them, they know, all right, I've got some triggers going off. I've got some things happening here. I can feel this starting to build. What can I do? I can go and have a conversation with a mate. I can find someone to talk to. It can be as simple as, you know, walking across the yard at school and seeing a bloke and just giving him the old truckies nod, just acknowledging another bloke instead of hiding away and pushing it away. It can be that skill of being able to wake up in the morning and going, all right, I'm not going that good today. What can I do physically? I go for a run, get straight up, have a big glass of water. But the number one skill for them to gain out of this workshop is to know that it's okay to not be going good. Like, I use the analogy that, I mean, I love my forward driving and stuff like that. I'm not a massive forward drive head, but I love the analogy of, there's some days, mate, when I get in that red truck of mine and and I'm driving along and I'll hit a few potholes or I'll hit a few holes. So I've got to get out and I've got to get the winch out. I've got to pull myself out of that hole. And you know what? Some days I'm struggling to pull myself out of that hole. So I've got to get a pulley block out, which is going to halve the load again. And I've got to pull myself out and then I'll be coasting again. And then there's days when, mate, I'm driving between Boorowa and Rugby, which is a beautiful part of the world. And I'm coasting, head out the window and things are going good. And that's completely normal. And young blokes need to understand that the next day, I might blow a tyre. So I've got to get out and I've got to change the tyre. So for me, like today, I woke up, we're going up to visit the old man in a few weeks, and I slipped back into that easy behaviour of playing the victim. And I've slipped into anxiety and I slipped into the, you don't know what it's like though, Claire. You don't know what it feels like. And just this afternoon, I got home here and mowed the lawn, did a few things. And even now while we're talking about it, so one of the other skills is chewing the fat and having a chat with a good mate who you are to me, is I realise again that, hey, your old man's got a story. Your old man's got stuff going on too. So get up there. Maybe don't do the easy thing, which is play the victim. Do the hard and the man thing, which is what these two young boys did in this last workshop, and stand up and go, hey, mate, can I take you for, let's go and have a beer. I'd love to just talk with you.
Just on that, I guess it's a similar thing, and I've talked about it in other podcasts. But you know, when you're the sort of the subject of someone being mean or angry or harsh, and you're sort of not sure quite how to take that, and we might normally respond in a way which is, counterproductive, but also you're just creating friction, and you're not. It's just like they're mean. Well, I can be meaner, or I can. You push back, or you can. Whether it's a natural response or it's fight or flight, whatever. But what I've learned, and what's been a really really great tool is is to stop, if you've got that opportunity to stop, of course, and think about what that person, and this is what we're talking about, what that person must be going through or must have gone through to be so angry, to be so mean, as I say, people are mean when they're scared.
Yeah.
And that anger is a consequence of a hurt and an anxiety, so to stand back and go, wow, imagine being that person, being so angry, being so scared, being so anxious. And then there's the opportunity to be compassionate to that person.
Mate, exactly. That's something I've been working with young fellas on is I've started this thing, it's form guide for a fella. And one of them in that is surrender. So I call it get out of the queue. And when I say surrender and get out of the queue, for me, say I can think about a mate who I know who can't do this too well. So I got now maybe 10 solid. I got 5 solid mates and I got 10 good mates. And out of those back half of the 5, I know that there's blokes who I probably couldn't sit down and have a full, deep and meaningful with. So I surrender that. I surrender to that. I go, you know what? I'm not going to expect that from him because he's not at that point at the moment. And maybe my old man's like that, at the moment and has been. And maybe he'll never be up to the point of having a yarn. So I got to surrender to that and just put my hands up, get out of the queue. So stop lining up to do it. And then there are blokes that I know with Bing, I can sit with Bing and go, hey, mate, I've got a bit of shit going on. And he can say, hey, mate, so do I. Or I can say, hey, I can tell you got a bit going on. And he'll go, no, I don't. I'll go, mate, next schooner, or mate, let's go and have a walk or a swim because I reckon you do. Or we need a road trip. Him and I do a lot of road tripping. So there's 7 or there's 8 of those steps really. But I mean, the first one's drop anchor. So teaching young blokes meditation, but you go into a bush school and say, hey, boys, we're going to meditate for 60 seconds. They're going to go, turn it up, mate. But if I say, all right, we're going to drop anchor. What's that? We're just going to stand still. 60 seconds. You introduce this thing of what comes into your head. Well, I had this come into my head, then it went. Exactly, boys. That's what thoughts do. They come and they go. Let's not let them shape our day, but let's grab one of them because the second one is going to be take stock. What's take stock? Well, we go mustering, we get everything, we put it all in the yards, boom, we're going to get everything that's going on, we're going to put it in front of us and we're going to look at it. Next one's going to be get out of the queue, right? So you might take in stock, you might write down what it is that you got going on in your head. Next one's going to be get out of the queue, just surrender to it for a day if you need to. Just move on from it. Have a crack at it again tomorrow, or don't expect that person you got the issue with to solve it today, but you could, you could have a crack at it. And that could be the next step, which I call road test it. But what's another way of dealing with that anxiety? Or for me, like today, what was another way of dealing with that, the fear of going up north to see the old fella? Instead of playing the victim and going, poor old me, I road tested this thing of going, you know what? I could just go up there and have a fat time with the family because Claire loves it. She's from up there, and the kids love it. And take the opportunity to go, hey, let's go and have a round of golf, old fella, and on 1 or 2 holes, just throw a question. And mate, what was it like when when Grandpa said to you about that Vietnam? And just get a bit, not expect too much from him. The third one, one of the next ones I've forgotten even how far along I am, but one of the ones I love the most, which is kill the pig. And I asked Matty Hayden about this one time. I said to him, mate, what'd you do on the weekend? He said, the young fella and I put the boat in at Jumping Pin and we killed the pig at South Strading. And I was like, straight away I knew what it meant. It meant that he went there and they fished hard. They had a great day of fishing. They had a fat time. So kill the pig for me, and you're going to do it in the morning with me, is getting up. Some mornings I'll kill the pig by doing 150 push-ups, and then I'll just have a swim in the ocean, then a coffee and a chat with a mate. Some mornings just have a swim in the ocean, that's kill the pig. Another one that my mate Dingo gave me, which is eat the frog.
Eat the frog, yeah.
Yeah,
first thing in the morning.
Yeah, just put the 3 things you got to do that day.
Yep.
I'm awful with that. Got to get lots better at that. So your 3 things you have to get through, and then do the hardest first. And the last one, mate, which we've done now, I'm sure we'll do after, and we do most times we talk. Pagey's good at, a good mate of ours, Richard. Bing's really good at it, but chew the fat, don't spin the yarn. So as blokes, we can spin yarns easy, and that's why at the start of that workshop I say to young fellas, and I say to old blokes in the older blokes workshop, what do we talk about? Footy, weekends, boom. We do that easy, boys, and we can do it all the time, but it's easy. Let's get uncomfortable, and let's go a little bit deeper, and let's talk about stuff, that means something to us, because the minute we do it, we own it. That was one of the steps. Own your stuff. Don't be the victim. You own it, you realise that there is a way out, or there is a bit of maybe not a solution, but a way to work with it. And I always say to young fellas, control it, don't let it control you. So, and even if you can't control it, walk beside it and look at it that way. Just don't let it stop you.
What comes up for me there, Tommy, is choice.
Yeah.
We have a choice at every moment of our lives, whether it's choosing to pick up that bottle of water to have a swig now or not, or whether it's, choosing to react this way to that person or that way. And, as you say, you get a choice to step out of the queue. You don't have to keep bashing your head against the wall or against that person. It's almost like in some ways there's did a course years ago called Landmark, and what they talk about there is you have a racket. There's something in it for you to be doing something that from the outside looks bad behaviour. It's just like not productive. So sort of going at someone or sort of standing in the queue, waiting in line to do what you just want to do. So someone else is going, man, why don't you just let it go?
Yeah.
And it's a racket when there's something in it for us, whether it's it maintains that sense of I'm a victim, or it gives me something to be distracted about. There's lots of reasons why we have these rackets, and it's about the choices we have to say, you know what, I actually don't have to do that.
Yeah.
No one's got a gun to me. And that's you might be familiar with Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. You'd love it if you haven't read it. And he worked out, he was I think he was a psychotherapist or something, and in the Second World War I got the story right, I read it years ago, in camps, concentration camps, and he was fascinated with the human condition. And he was the subject of torture and all sorts of nasty, nasty things, and through that he realised that there's one thing that his tormentors will never take away from him, and that's his choice. His choice to how he reacts. We have a primitive urge immediately, and then there's a gap, where we have a choice as to what happens then.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating stuff, and the good news is that within us all, we will always retain that choice. It's just whether we want to, man up. What's that expression? Step to the line. What's that? Step to the line. Is that the?
Yeah,
I
mean, I worked with an organisation in Melbourne who they do. I mean, a lot of organisations do that. Reach organisation do it really well. But I call that toe the line.
Toe the line.
So they call it step to the line. I call it toe the line because there's this. They say when we toe the line, it's a predefined standard of what's expected of us. Yeah, so I say to young blokes, like before we did this workshop, the predefined standard in this cohort or this group was to talk about porn, drink hard on the weekend, get the girl, do the banter and the gossip, and all that sort of crap.
And if you didn't do that,
you're a pussy, you're a fag, you're on your own. This is when the guy who doesn't do that, he gets to step up and hold that and go, you know what, boys, I'm not gonna accept this. I'm not gonna accept that anymore. So a school I was just at recently, a video had gone around of a girl who'd been assaulted by a bloke. And it was awful. Made her call out names and all this stuff during it. It was full on. And the boys at the start of the workshop were calling that out and they were laughing about it. And so halfway through the workshop, when I do this toe the line, I say, hold it if you find it acceptable that there's a girl walking around this school right now who gets names yelled at her that she yelled out in a video while she was being assaulted. And you'll get boys in front of their mates, they'll hold the line and go, I don't find it acceptable. And I'm going to call this out today. Like I'm done with it. Even hold it if you find it unacceptable that there's men in this room today who we know are gay men and they get written off for it. They get banter on it. They get abused for it. And then there's opportunities for those men to step up and own their sexuality. And the minute they do it, like I had a school 2 years ago where I had a young man step up and do it, and he was running around the room after it just going, I can't believe it. Like, you blokes are cool with it that I'm gay. And like this big old footballer at the back, buffy old bloke goes, mate, we knew you, buddy, being gay forever. And he goes, but you don't care. And you go, I don't care, mate. You're a bloody still the same bloke. But before that, he had to hide. He was the bloke who didn't get to be him. So after this, you know, that activity, they get a chance to set a new standard. And the bloke who leaves the room and writes off that dude for being gay, the rest of them look at him and go, mate, we heard his story about how hard it's been for him to hide in the closet, or how hard it's been for him to, you know, tell his mum and dad that he's, we heard, how can you be putting shit on him, mate? You're a mug. So there's that new standard, you know, like a rite of passage, you know, that they move through. And for older blokes, like, that might just be talking about anxiety. That might just be in front of a group talking about, you know, how hard drought's been and you know, the pressure it's putting on the family. You know,
a lot of our listeners, Tommy, would, you know, male farmers, you know, country folk and so on. What's the, you know, if you've worked with I guess men in urban areas and, you know, in the city areas, what are the different set of men rules in the country versus the city?
Nah, it's exactly the same. That's the craziest part. It's exactly the same. Nothing really changes. You know, they hold themselves really tight to it. And I guess the number one thing that's, we talked a lot before about Claire and that relationship of mine, and that thing that I used to drink heavy with the boys and then come home and cry to her. A lot of blokes will say, mate, I'm good at talking. Like, I'll go to the pub and I'll watch the bloody Raiders get up, and I'll drink 8 or 9 schooners, and then I'll go home and I'll chat to the missus till 5 in the morning. And the minute they say, I picture the missus, because I used to see Claire, and the missus is sitting there in the seat going, like, well, that, or hearing all of this stuff that the blokes are going through.
The talk is not.
Yeah,
it's all one way.
It's all different from what it was with the boys. But you know, when I think about people from the land, like, gosh, the workshops that I run in, you know, Trangie and Narromine and places like that, you just see literally them be who they are, I guess, when you meet them, which is that hand out straight away. How are you, mate? You know, come in, sort of thing. And rarely is there a moment of silence and you're waiting for someone to step up. No, I'll get up and have a chat, mate. No problem. I'll tell you how it is. And they do that. And their honesty is incredibly brutal. And the blokes, one thing you notice, the drinking goes from, you know, I always put on a couple of light beers at an event at the start, and the drinking goes from blokes rushing to the esky because there's that anxiety. The minute that a bloke talks and shares, it slows down. The esky lids aren't getting lifted up anymore, and blokes start to listen. Blokes start to share. I mean, you know what it's like, mate. Out in the bush, blokes don't get the opportunity to do it. The fellas on the coast, they're around each other every day. They go down the coffee shop and they can have a cuppa. You know, they got mobile reception all day, so they can send texts. They can do their social media stuff. The champions in the bush are on tractors all day, or they're, you know, out in the field all day, or they're down the back paddock doing fences all day. So they got a lot of time on their own to, you know, think in their heads. And mate, one thing that I'll always make sure I do, and I hope I do, is get across that I'm not like any kind of, I'm just an old school teacher from Tugun. Like, I've done a couple of these courses in doing this work, but I don't ever want to come across like I know what the legends in the bush are up to, or how they're going. I mean, the 3 years that I experienced in drought out there, the hardest thing I think for me was the fact that I got to come back here and they had to stay there. And, you know, I got emotion in the voice when I think about that, because, you know, I saw what so many of them were going through. But I got to get in my car and drive back to Avalon. You know,
you could escape.
I got to escape it, and they didn't. So yeah, you know, I was just saying about you know, I'm a school teacher trained. I think the reason this work for me is I love it so much and it works is because I live it. Like this morning, I was riddled with anxiety. I mean, I haven't had a beer now for 5 or 6 days, and I'm no longer that heavy drinker, but I can notice when I have 2 beers, you know, the next day I'm not anxiety or anything like that, but I'm a bit slower. You know, I don't have that glow. In saying that, you know, I might have a beer tonight. But I live still that rats and mice in my head, and I'm not afraid to talk about that, because that's what makes it work. You know,
mate, you're clearly not afraid to share. Just looking at the time, this is not quite the marathon I've had before.
No,
But
you're right.
It's the second longest. We might have split it into two.
Yeah.
I just wanted, again, given that our listeners, portion of our listeners at male country fellas, is there anything, or what would you, or could you, any sort of things that you can, if any of those fellas are, I don't know, feeling like they need to reach out, or is there any tips that you can give them apart from, and we'll get to that, like actually attending one of your men's nights? Is there anything that the fellas who aren't going to get to one can think about or consider,
Yeah, mate, I mean, straight up, do what Bing did for me. I mean, a lot of the blokes, if the older blokes are listening and rugby league fans, like they'll remember Neil Pringle played 87 games for the Blue Bags, Newtown there. He lied about his age when he was 15, so he could play first grade. And then he went over to the Tigers and played 144 games, I think it was, at the Tigers. Incredibly strong, tough bloke who will sit down with you and tell you the mistakes that he's made. He'll tell you, about his family, his first family, his wife and kids were living with him on the Gold Coast, and they'd had enough of sort of the way that he was as a bloke, and they took off back to Sydney. But he'll sit and tell you about all these mistakes, and it makes me want to talk. It makes me want to open up the minute he does that. But the other thing that he'll do is he won't bullshit me. He'll sit in front of me and go, "Hey mate, like I said before, you got something going on. I'm going to listen." So I think it's about being able to find that mate and having that skill as well. Before I talked about that surrender, like don't expect out of your 10 mates, all 10 of them to be able to do it. And just find one mate and ring him and go, "Hey, how you going?" And the skill is not being able to go, "Hey mate, how you going?" because I'm feeling absolutely beaten for pace and this, that, the rest. Go, "Mate, hey," just put your toe in the water a little bit and go, "Mate, how you going?" "Yeah, mate, look, I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad. How you going?" "Oh, look, I'll be honest. I had a bit of a tough morning." Or I'm turning 50 and I'm wondering what's going on. I'm wondering what I've done. And being able to accept that if your mate goes, "Hey mate, I'm on the school run at the moment," or I'm just doing this, "Can I call you back in an hour?" And for you to be able to go, "Mate, no problem," or for him to go, "Mate, let's sit down and have a yarn." But finding that one mate that can do it. And then even if you can't find that one mate, taking that opportunity to sit down and write a few things down. A good mate of mine, Dingo, says read a book, read a hard book, go for a walk, go for a run, do those sorts of things. But I always feel that there is, out of those 10 mates, there's going to be one that you can lean on. There's going to be one bloke that you can talk to. But we've just got to make sure we don't have that expectation that all 10 of them are going to be able to do it. Because, you see a bloke stand up and he stands up at a workshop and a couple of other blokes might be talking in the group behind him. He's taking a huge risk, which is young blokes, one of their men's laws is, take risks. We go out on the piers, like someone says, "Hey, let's go and do doughies in the car." You do it because you're taking a risk. And I turn it around to the boys and say, like, let's turn taking a risk around. Take a risk by stepping up right now and saying, "Hey, I've got a bit of shit on the liver." Or, I use that term. And the halfback did it with the young champ at the school I was talking about. He stood up. He said, "I want to talk to him." He took a risk and he broke a rule. So do that. And the other one is, the boys use that rule, don't dog the boys or Friday for the boys. And older blokes still do it. And they say dogging the boys is talking about, you don't talk about to another bloke about your problems because you're burdening him. Well, understand that the minute you do that, you unburden him, you unlock him. And mate, so I mean, again, for me to be able to say to a bloke who's right now listening in Nyngan or Cobar or Wilcannia or, beautiful West Wyalong or anywhere, Griffith. Geez, I love all that country out there. Jugigong. For me to be in Avalon and say, "Mate, this is what you're going to do," I'd just be bullshitting him. But I can say from a bloke who's 39, who's about to turn 40, whose biggest challenge and work in life is to forgive his old man and to build a relationship with his old man, get uncomfortable and just take it on, because you're a long time bloody lamb's fried, you're a long time brown bread. You may as well jump in, eat that frog and, and just take it on. And that's me talking now. Tomorrow morning, I might wake up and say to you, shit,
Can we
have a rum?
Can we erase all that?
I didn't mean anything.
You know what? Thank you for being so courageous to tell us your story, Tommy. I'm not quite done with you yet, because it does take courage for people to ask those questions, and as you say, to to stand and listen and be willing to listen, because when you're hearing your mate talk about some stuff and opening up and being courageous and taking that risk, the not the threat, but I guess the anxiety for that person listening is potentially and probably it's exactly the same thing, but that person's got the courage to say it, and you're standing there listening and not. Hopefully, that's the catalyst to go, you know what, mate? That's exactly how I feel too.
Yeah, I think a big one in that, and I hope I took this from the question is, I mean, in this last amount of workshops that I did, the teacher was like, "Oh, I hope you don't mind, but I've just opened the doors to anyone who wants to come." And no, there weren't any. There was a few female teachers, but they were all boys and a few female teachers. And I said, "Bully," I said, "Mate, if I didn't accept that, I wouldn't be doing the work." Because it is uncomfortable for me. I've never done that. I've never just opened the doors. But, mate, I'd be bullshitting to these young blokes if I was like, no, we're not allowed to do that. There's a structure and we do it this way and that's it. I've worked with organisations that said we only do 2 workshops a day. I was at a school in the Gold Coast last week where we did 7 in one day. It was this brutal 14-hour marathon. It was amazing. I loved it. By the end of it, I was fried and I was just like, because I feed on the honesty. I'll be honest with you now in saying that when I'm not talking like this, I struggle on the outside. It's like when I'm out there spraying my paddock with the alcohol and the Valiums, that's when my land is hurting. But when I'm letting the bad days come and the weeds roll in, mate, that's when I'm like, this is life. That's natural. Like this happens. But so in just on that question you were saying, I had 6 or 7 young blokes who came 4 or 5 times that one week. And each time I could see that they were getting closer to getting up and sharing that story. And a third time I had this one boy who got up. He was all angry. And I said, mate, what's going on? He goes, I'm angry. I said, what are you angry about? He goes, you're a dickhead. I was like, why am I a dickhead? He goes, 'cause. I said, why? And he goes, you make me angry. And I was like, I make you angry. He goes, no. I said, well, what's making you angry? He goes, I don't know. And he just went and sat down. And I was like, that was weird. That was good. Like, that was uncomfortable. Anyway, at the end of it, he came up to me and said, oh, mate, I'm sorry, but I just got angry. I said, mate, don't be sorry. Like, his Coke bottle was about to explode. Came back the next day. He saw a couple of blokes share and talk and engage. This kid's got a horrendous story. He came back the day after that and he got up in front of the boys and he explained to the boys about everything that's going on in his life, the noises in his head, the voices he hears, all this sort of stuff. It took him 5 workshops to get to that point where he shared. And that can be it for our mates. We might have mates who need to do, this is the other thing that we need to accept, that we don't get up some days and just go, you know what, today I'm going to run 50K. We start out by running 5. Like I'm up to now I can get 150, 200 push-ups. Started out by doing sets of 5. I can do sets of 40 now. I'm built like a brown snake. But, this takes practice. It takes time. But that's what we need to accept as well, and that's what we need to normalise. But as blokes, we've never done it. We just don't talk, mate. Whereas we got to talk.
And something else that I'm getting in the habit of doing is hugging.
Yeah,
it's something that, and I often reflect on this. I go, geez, at university, you shake your hand or you punch someone, probably how you used to do it, and you push them over, you trip them, and that was you being affectionate, And then somewhere, and I don't even know where it was, probably not that many years ago, to be honest. There was a couple of mates that, you get to, you're on the grog and you have a cuddle and, I love you, mate. And then that sort of starts seeping into your life when you're not on the grog, which is good, with a couple of good mates. And then I'm sort of using that as a tool, probably the wrong word, maybe it's the right word, to sort of, I'm hugging more farmers than I've ever hugged before.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, there's not many that sort of,
push back.
Yeah, and it's like it feels normal, and it's like it breaks that ice. It's like and I'm one thing I love about growing up on a farm in the country is that look, it's probably no different in the city with people who grow up in the city, but
you know, you can be away from somewhere for a long time, and you step back in there, and it's like you never left. And then hugging is that next step, you know. And it's you know, and in some instances it's actually weird not to. It feels like, oh, you know, this is like, you know, I want to, you know, we got to connect. You know?
Yeah.
Because as you say, we're dead a long time, and there's lots of stuff that needs to be said. You know, it doesn't have to be said, but if it's said, it's sort of like
it's out there.
It's a purge, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that story, I always say to young fellas, I mean, you see a bloke walking around and go, geez, that bloke's bloody weirdo, and you know, what's his story? And we throw that line so easily. What's his bloody story, that bloke? The minute he tells his story, we might discover why he's a weirdo. He might have grown up on his pat and he didn't have any family and he's battled and this, that and the rest. All of a sudden, he becomes the author. So I say to young blokes, I say, don't sit around and throw stones and go, what's that bloke's story? Because blokes are probably looking at you going, what's his story? Instead of doing that, get up and go, all right, I'll become the author of my own story. And the minute you become the author of your own story, you're it. Like, you've published it, mate. It's out there. And others now know all that stuff about you. And there's no longer that judgment. There's no longer that guessing.
And standing with that, because we're all individual, and we all have an individual story to tell, and an existence that, you know, we've got to be proud of. You know, we don't need to, you know, sort of pump our own tyres with it, but just to say that is me. That's the way I think. You know, I can't be responsible for other people's emotions and the way they react to me. You know, this is just, you know, and I certainly, and to some extent probably still are, but, you know, for many years I was always, you know, worrying about what people were thinking, you know.
Yep.
And, and outwardly,
I think we've had a good convo about that sort of stuff, that judgment. Yeah.
Totally.
Mate, I always say to young blokes and men that I'm working, I go, boys, like straight up, one of my icebreakers, boys, like if you look at life like a rugby league game, I love my league. It's been hard to follow it over the years with the way the boys behave, but that's another podcast. Is if I look at life like, you know, I'm a rugby league player, I'll struggle to, and that's life. I'll struggle to play first grade because I'm not that good at life, right? So on a regular day, I'm probably third grade. Some days I'm coming off the bench for second grade, and the reason I'm not playing firsts is because, I do have rats and mice in the head, and I do have that judgment. I think, what are people thinking about me? I read into things. I can play the victim pretty easily. You know, I can take the easy road sometimes pretty easily, which is, you know, no one knows and all that sort of stuff. And then there's days where I go, right, okay, I don't want to be playing third grade. I've got to start playing a bit more second or first. So I'll bring in a program which is, all right, this morning if I get up and run, swim, have that coffee, have a chat with a mate, some days I can be coming off the bench for first grade, you know. But then there's days when I'm playing fifth grade. You know, some days there's days when I get a phone call from the coach and say, mate, don't even bother bringing your boots today because you're going no good. But that's what I've accepted, you know, and that's almost, I've set that expectation on myself. I haven't let that expectation slow me down. I want to get better at it. Like talking about my old man today the way I have is the first time that I've probably ever done it. With Scotty Gooding, when we did a podcast with him, I spoke about my old man in the easiest way possible, which was bagging the shit out of him. And I wrote him off and I blamed him for all my stuff. And I got off it and I rang Scotty and I said, mate, hey, I got to own a bit there. Like my old man, I raged on him. I worked out after that my biggest challenge and my biggest thing in life is to find a relationship with him. So, you know, that day, mate, I was playing first grade the next day. I was almost half-back captain coach because I felt like, right, you were a man just then.
Yeah, you called yourself out.
Called myself out. So it's about giving blokes those analogies, I think, that they're able to go, right, okay, I can relate to that. I can connect to that. Yeah, there's days when I've got the pulley block out on the truck and I'm hurting. But for the blokes as well that are always getting the pulley block out and the blokes who are then winching themselves out of trouble by going to the pub and drinking 10 or 12 schooners, that's when you got to go, right, we got to do something about this because all I'm doing is pushing this away. Yeah, it's easy. But step up and go, right, there's got to be a way around this. And the way that around this that worked for me, Tommy Herschel, is just owning it and going, it's not working anymore. I've got to have a chat.
Yeah, so just about chats, I mean, for those who are seeing friends self-destruct, your mates here,
Yeah.
being, they called you out. Like, how is there anything, for those listening who might know someone that's like on that edge? Is there a conversation? Is there a sentence? Is there a
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember that there's those old school interventions, like I remember I always lived in fear of coming home one day to 15 people in my lounge room, and my mum probably wanted that to happen for a hell of a long time. But my tip is, I guess, is to be like Bing, or I always say with Find Your Feet, be like Bass, which was just put your front foot forward and go, hey, mate, I've got to call you out on something here. Because without Bass saying anything, as a 15-and-a-half-year-old who was dying from cancer, he called me out on the selfish bloke I was being by, looking at me in the eye. And the last time I saw him was shaking my hand and just saying, he looked me in the eye and he looked at me and said, don't fuck this up. You can do something with your life. I can't, I'm dying. So he held me then that day. He held me to something, and I can't go back on that. But for a mate, like I got a couple of mates who I know get on it way too much, and they've said to me the next day, I've got to do something about my drinking. I've got to stop. It's in that moment where you've got a choice. You spoke about choice before. We can go, nah, mate, you're right. Bloody, come on. You're good fun. I love going down the pub with you. Or you can go, mate, I really love you. You're one of my good mates. And I'd be dogging you if I didn't step up right now and tell you, yeah, I reckon you probably do need to do something about it. And the reason I'm saying that is because I love you and you're one of my mates. If I didn't say it to you, I'd be bullshitting you and I'd be dogging you, and one day we could possibly lose you. You'll always hear when people are going through stuff or we lose stuff, people say, I never even knew, or he said something I didn't know what to say. That's the outcome of this. We've got to get better at knowing what to say. So I say to young blokes, when someone gets up and tells that story, the young fella says, I was playing footy and I did my ACL and I couldn't play for 6 months. Instead of saying, who were you playing when you did your ACL? Ask them the question was, what was it like to do your ACL? And like, how did it feel? It must have not played footy for 6 months. Footy is my love. It's what gets me through. And so we start to get better at it. We practice it. So when that mate does come to you and says, hey, mate, I reckon I'm on the piss a bit too much, he's so used to everyone else saying, nah, come on, mate, you're sweet. Yeah. You'll be the first one to step up and go, I reckon you are, mate. Like Bing called me out massively. And the minute he did, I sobered up.
We better wrap it up. This has been extraordinary. One last sort of question, Tommy, is where can people find you? Well, people hearing this and going, wow, I'm a teacher at a public school, Albury or somewhere, I'd love to
beautiful Albury. My old man had the pub in Albury. Soden's.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, he owns. Yeah, he was the manager there at Soden's.
Beautiful architecture there.
I don't mind Albury.
Yeah, good spot.
I think one of my sisters was born there. Mate, so they can get on, it's the old vanity.com, tommyherschel.com, my own website. And, mate, I always say to people, I run workshops and I'm a school teacher. I'm not a marketing or design sort of person, so don't be too thrown out by the website, but you can find me there. I mean, my phone number, I'll put it straight up, 0401 159 636. That's my honesty straight up there. Email me, Tom at tommyherschel.com. The beauty of our workshop, mate, is it's fully funded. We do have this way of being able to do that. It's called 1 for 1. So, we've got a great school on the Gold Coast in TSS who just funded a heap of workshops, which normally wouldn't cost them a thing. And by doing that, it's allowed me to approach a school in rural Queensland for them to be able to have the same amount of workshops, run at no cost. But mate, we're just about to become a not-for-profit in the next 36 hours. And we've got some amazing supporters. Mahindra has been amazing. Chemist Warehouse gotten behind us. A good mate of mine, Josh at Bombora Investment. All these people who are just getting in behind Find Your Feet, and they're not sponsors. They're not any of that sort of stuff. They're just mates at Find Your Feet who believe in this work, who, power, I guess, this ability for me to go out and tell that story like I do and allow others to do it. All they got to do is make contact, mate. And and I'll be there in the red truck with the red dog.
It's quite a team.
Yeah.
Tommy, mate, thank you so much for your time. I can't tell you how honoured I am to hear some of those stories again. It's a great reminder to hear some fresh stories that have made up your regenerative journey. And my God, you are certainly doing some amazing things to be a catalyst for other people's journeys, as well. Kids, not just school kids, but adults. It's never too late.
Yeah, mate. I think on that too. Like, it's amazing. People say, "Oh, it's incredible this work you're going out and doing." And I say to the young boys, I go, "Boys, I didn't come in here and sprinkle any magic dust or give you all something to take." And we all started talking like this. You've got this in you. We're just the conduit, and that's where Bastian still, like little Bass, he still runs this so strong because I tell his story, and the minute that you tell his story and the minute I tell my story, they want to tell their story. So that's the beauty of this work, and I guess the final thing too is for men to realise that we can go to that Coke bottle and release the pressure. There's so many ways of doing it, but just make sure you do it because there's this, mate. I'm a mad surfer. It's like getting spat out of a big wave. It's like mustering 2,000 sheep in one day I'm not much good on a horse, but on a little 4-wheeler on a dusty lane. It's to share and to hear another bloke talk or to have a conversation like we've had. For me, I get that same emotion, that same feel. I get it after a cold shower, like that tingling. We're talking like this. I started out in Narromine, these school workshops, and I see, like, when I'm out there, I see my grandmother in all the places out there, and my mate Jeremy Gill out there who, he's a warrior in this sort of stuff as well, just being able to just have conversations and just release that pressure. I don't even know where I'm going with all this. I guess I'm just so grateful, mate, that I get to do it with you. Like,
well, we've been talking about it for some time, and it's probably something I should have said at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
There's the work we did, it's nearly
too long ago.
Yeah, a year and a half or nearly 2 years ago, or might be more actually.
Yeah.
Lord, 2.5, probably 3 years in
the Lord
in November.
Yeah,
and we went. Tommy came down. We had 8 or 10 fellas down there. Number of farmers. We had a fantastic. Well, I'm saying fantastic. It was on our farm, so I thought it was all right. Tour around the farm.
It's unbelievable.
Some good, a couple of good feeds. We camped in the shearing shed with the sheep that happened to be in the shed at the night.
Oh, that was the best, mate. On that, and just to talk.
Hang on, and there was this. You ran that. It was a program. It was a weekend, and it wasn't just like eat some
3 days
chops and burn around the back of the Land Cruiser. It was the intention there was to let's go deep. Let's talk. Let's call each other out. Let's talk about these things. And the fellas there just were embraced. It's just 100%, didn't they? It was mind blowing.
And mate, that was one of the first big. The 3-day workshop that I ran, and the reason it happened was because you said, mate, let's do it. So you were prepared to jump out and take a risk and be uncomfortable. And I remember that first night, we're up on that beautiful hill at the back of your property there, and we were doing the joking around with the intros, and it was that blokey thing was going on, and one bloke, like I won't mention his name, but he'll listen to this for sure. He lives around your area, and he's one of my best friends now. Just jumped in amongst all of the band when it came to his turn, and he said, "Boys, I'm here because I'm at a point in my life where I'm really struggling, and I need some direction. I need some help." And he got emotional, and that set off the weekend. And that's every workshop. It's the bloke in Young who got up and spoke about his health thing. It opened up the room for everyone else. So for 3 days, mate, I remember at the end of it, we had the wives and the writing letters and you blokes had no idea, and men who had never heard their wives speak to them in that way. Bing came back to the circle just in tears and saying, I've never had my wife stand up to me like that and talk to me like that. I've gained so much more respect for her and as a friend, And, you know, Benny Murph, my mate, he's still got the letter, you know, that his wife wrote him. And that was a magical. I'm still best mate to a lot of those blokes. Timmy Wood, they're great.
I was talking to him today.
Yeah. I'm surprised you're not still talking to him. Timmy.
Timmy Wood.
Very good looking rooster, Timmy. Good looking
he gets
man.
younger. He's like, what's that? What was that movie? They go, the fellow, he gets younger.
Yeah. I don't know
the one. Yeah.
I know the one. Brad Pitt played
Yeah,
him,
that's it. And he's Timmy Wood gets younger. Benjamin Button.
Benjamin Button.
And so we've been talking, you and I, for a little while now, and also I've been talking to some chefs about doing a similar thing at Hanamino for them, similar sort of style, similar format, because they're going through, well, especially now with the COVID thing. It's just like, I mean, it was a tough gig before that, you know, in terms of hospitality and the sort of the nature of of the industry. You know, it's a wonderful industry, and it's tough. It's a tough game, and then COVID came along, and then, you know, there's no time like the future for, I reckon, for us. We're going to stop talking about it, mate. Going to do it.
Yeah.
I've got a few chefs lined up, so it's basically. For those chefs out there listening, or people in that sort of hospo world, is getting you guys to the farm, Hanamino, and having a retreat. And we're gonna, you know, we'll do a farm tour, eat some good tucker, homegrown, and we're gonna talk about what we need to talk about.
Yeah, yeah. I think with the farmers one we did, mate, there was people who weren't even farmers.
That's
it was
right.
about, but they were lovers of the land, you know, and so the core for that first one was what is it that you love about being a farmer?
Yeah.
Or what is it you love about being connected to the land? And you know, that first night I played some pretty awful short films, but it created that honest conversation.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't bullshit each other or shortchange anything. Everyone was just spoke, you know, from the heart of what they felt, and the weekend went from there, mate. So now I'm looking forward to it. Lock me in.
Well,
We're
mate,
going now. Let's go now.
Let's go and round up a few chefs. Mate, you've spoken from the heart for the last while, and Tommy, I really appreciate that, mate. We better wrap it up, and I'm really looking forward to working with you in the future, and let's do this, you know.
Mate, love you dearly, and I'm calling green boots for all involved.
For all participants. I better get myself. I can put a bit of red, a bit of green dubbing on these puppies.
Yeah.
On the blundies.
You'll be sweet.
No, I better track them down, mate.
Go for it.
Do I need a license to wear them, mate?
Mate, you do. You just got to be from Chugan, and you had to have been the ball boy when we won the comp in '87.
You can adopt me. Thanks, mate. That's it for Tommy Herschel. Not so much for Tommy Herschel. He's got a big future in front of him. That's the end of his interview with me. At least this one anyway. I dare say I'll be catching up with Tommy again for another yarn. Hopefully at Pittwater there, a lovely spot. And that really wraps it up for the season too. This is the last episode. I can't tell you what an amazing journey we've been on, the team here at the Regenerative Journey. We've had an amazing year. This is where we look. 2020 was the year of all sorts of stuff going down and up and sideways. And a dog barking. Unless my son Lordy's got a raspy voice. I'm sure it's a dog. A crazy year, and one where no one could really do too much planning and couldn't have predicted what happened. However, you know, so thrilled that Landcare Australia was able to help us launch Series 1. We kept on going with Series 2 later in the year. Had a wonderful Series 2. Picked up a nomination in the Australian Podcast Awards for Best Interview. That totally blew us away, and I just have to use this opportunity to thank so very much Reese and Liv at Yoga Media, who helped put together our every episode. They string and they actually don't do too much editing, not because Reese can't. He can edit like no man. However, we choose to just let it run. But he does. He's so very patient with me. Thank you, Reese. With my last minute changes and my just general all over the placeness sometimes. He's very patient and he always pulls through.
And he's so reliable. Talking about reliable, Fiona Turney, who is our faithful and wonderful person, brand manager and development manager, who's done a wonderful work and job and such a valuable team member, and has been with us for, gee whiz now, I'm trying to think, a year. Is it a year? No, it's over. Where are we? It's a year. Time goes, doesn't it? And doing a wonderful, wonderful job. My wife, Angelica, what a star, what a trooper. Haven't interviewed her yet. We have been talking about it, and I'm wondering whether we might just throw a wild one in January. We are taking January off to regroup for Series 3 and just see where that's going to take us, and how we sort of put together and where we go with Series 3. But maybe as a bit of a interim measure, we might just throw a few other interviews in there. One may well be with Angelica. Thought we also would throw in maybe a best of Series 2 as well. Just think about that. If you like the idea of that, let us know, whether it's on the website or whether it's any way you want. If you like to hear a best of, we can probably pull that together too, given the amazing work that Reese has done. Who else there? Our listeners, and last but not least, the wonderful listeners, you guys and girls who from around the world, and that blows us away, just that fact. We get little maps on our Libsyn thing where we launch and post. We host is hosting the interviews and the podcast. We can see where you all are on the little map. It's fantastic, and you're all over the world. So, just a big thank you, a big hug of appreciation for all of you. I can't tell you how humbling it is to get your wonderful notes and messages and texts and so on of what you're getting out of it. And that's really what's important to me, is that it's not just a way to spend some time when you're walking doing your morning walk or walking the dog or on the way to work in the car or on the tractor. It's your time is valuable, and I really appreciate that you could be doing so many other things with your time, and the fact that you log in to and jump on, put your cans on and listen to the Regenerative Journey every week, and our numbers every week are building, and that in itself is amazing. That the news is spreading, and it's not just the fact that it's this podcast and it's these interviewees. It's the whole, I guess, attraction to not just regenerative agriculture and regenerative farming. I mean, what this podcast is about is telling the stories of regenerative living, of regenerative mindfulness, wellness, food production, landscape management, everything, dental hygiene. We did it all this season, in season 2. And the fact you log in, you listen, and you want to know more, and you're suggesting who else. Again, it's just mind-blowing. I just can't tell you how much I appreciate the feedback. And it feels good, it seems to be resonating with people, and we want to continue, So talking about continuing, just one last plug for the Patreon platform we have set up, that you can subscribe to as a member. And again, for the price of a couple of coffees, that's all it is a month. You can help roll out Series 3 and maintain the series, and for that, you member benefits such as a monthly webinar with some of our interviewees. We're working on what other additional benefits there might be, whether we have another subscription level or we just throw some more freebies in there. Remains to be seen. We want to make sure you're feeling like you're getting value. We trust you're getting value at the moment, because the podcast is obviously free, and that's a wonderful thing, because we don't want any hurdles to people being able to access this information, these interviewees, these wonderful stories of regenerative living. I think that's about it. Excuse me. 2021 is going to be exciting. Lots planned, some online course activity, some publications, some web series, and general good stuff, I think. A few conferences, many workshops actually. Biodynamic workshops are going off at the moment. I can't tell you when we do launch them next year, when we confirm dates. Please, if you want to join us, jump on early, because the last couple sold out, and our natural sequence farming workshop. By the time you actually hear this, which is might be near Christmas time, I dare say we would have sold out. But check it out anyway. If there's enough demand, we might even do it again later in spring in 2021. I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas and festive season, a restive festive season. Really excited about 2021. I hope you are too. A whole new chapter of our lives will unfold, hopefully a little more progressive and positive than the last 12 months. Having said that, though, we've all learned some valuable lessons. I certainly have, and I'm going to make sure that I leverage those lessons and share them with as many people as I can. And that's probably it. A bit sad that season 2 is over. I'm sure if it's season 2 or series 2. Kind of like season. I like the word season. I could change that, Reece. So that's a wrap. I hope I haven't forgotten anyone. I trust I haven't. And you just have a freaking fabulous break in January. Spread the news, subscribe, share, review, rate this wonderful podcast. Not wonderful because, I'm involved. It's wonderful because of the people who share and are courageous enough to tell their regenerative journeys. And I look forward to telling more next year.
This episode is brought to you by 2020. We climbed a mountain of uncertainty and scaled it with wings. While flying, we set our intention for much better things. We searched for meaning through fires, floods and plague. We looked to each other so hope would not fade. We rose above dictatorship and menacing behaviour, understanding fortitude and resilience would be our only saviour. Our sovereign spirit did rise above it all, and through calamity and disaster we heard our highest call. To stand united through thick or thin, it's the Aussie way for a new world order to begin. Respectful and loving to treat each other in kind, to enable our planet and all humanity to once again shine. This podcast is produced by Reece Jones at Jaeger Media. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe, share, rate and review. For more episode information, please head over to www.charliearnott.com.au.